Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2014 Mazda 6 manual. Up front is a 2.5 liter inline 4, and down below is a 6-speed manual transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this Mazda 6 manual because, well, it's manual. That's the whole reason. I honestly did not realize that this generation, the third generation of Mazda 6, even came with a manual option. And so today I'm so incredibly excited to share my thoughts on a manual transmissioned Mazda 6. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. Last but not least, huge thank you to North Naperville Autos for letting me borrow their Mazda 6 for today's video. More on them towards the end, but if you'd like to browse their inventory, you can do so down in the description below. But let's get back to that 2.5 liter inline 4 under the hood. Well, that is the Sky Active 2.5 liter, and surprisingly, it's pretty much the same engine that we get still here today in the Mazda 3, base model Mazda CX-30, CX-5, CX-50, vehicles of that nature. It makes about 180 horsepower here, and honestly, it's a pretty solid motor. I have total faith in the engine under the hood. Now, like I said, paired to it is a 6-speed manual transmission, and it honestly is almost everything I've ever wanted. Now, the reason I say almost is truly just because the car isn't really that quick. It's front-wheel drive. It's not the Mazda Speed 6 that I really want. However, the shifter itself feels amazing, really notchy, really confident, feels great. Clutch is friendly and forgiving. It's not too light, but it is still very light. And overall, it's just such a wonderful driving experience. If you want a more normal manual car, say you don't want a Miata, you don't want a Porsche Boxster, you don't want some crazy exotic sports car, this is such a good vehicle because you get to row your own gears, you get to feel that passion and connection to the vehicle, but you also don't have to put up with the downsides of sports cars, harsh riding suspension, minimal interior space. This is a nice big car that has a stick shift, and that is really where this car comes into its own. We're going to talk a lot about that with the final thoughts, but this manual is a very good one. Last but not least, this is front-wheel drive. Now, in this era, you could find all-wheel drive Mazda 6s. However, not available with the manual transmission. This goes back many years. The only all-wheel drive manual that I know of from Mazda would be the Mazda Speed 6. Of course, they did have the Mazda 323 GTX back in the day and things like that. But in modern history, the only manual that they've done has been the Mazda Speed 6, at least in the last 20 years. The Mazda Speed 3, front-wheel drive. The Mazda CX-5, when it was offered in manual, front-wheel drive. The current Mazda 3 is available in front-wheel drive, and of course, the current Miata is offered in rear-wheel drive. So that's always been a line in the sand for Mazda. No all-wheel drive manuals besides the Speed 6, so it makes sense here. How does it feel to drive the Mazda 6 in general? It is a big sedan. It's not a super luxurious experience. Mazda is now trying to push luxury with their current models, but this vehicle really wasn't. This is still very heavily influenced by Ford of the time, and so it's a little rattly. It's not super exciting to drive on the road, but it is a sedan with a manual, and I'm not going to complain. Visibility is fine. Ride quality's okay. Would have liked a little bit softer, but it is pretty cold here today. So again, I'm happy with the Mazda 6. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 4 gauges. Off to the left is the tachometer. In the center is a speedometer, and off to the right is the fuel, but that's inside this like multi-gauge. So really 2 physical gauges and a screen. I like it. It works well. It's held up pretty good over the last 12 years, so I'm happy with that. On the steering wheel, on the left, we do have our skip track, volume info, and mute, and off to the right we have our cruise control. To the left of the steering wheel we get a climate control vent, we have our traction control off and tire pressure reset, a little cubby, trunk release, and moving out of the door we have our latch to get in and out, power mirrors, power locks, and power windows. Moving into the center, we do get our radio. Now, this is the era where screens were starting to come into the vehicles. Mazda hadn't adapted that yet here for the Sport Mazda 6. This is a Sport trim level, which was basically base model. So we get CD player, AM, FM, USB, and aux, but that's about it, which was fine for 2014, just not really great for modern tech. Down below that, we do have 2 climate control vents and the hazard switch. We have a digital clock and our climate controls. Temperature off to the left, fan speed in the center, where to send it off to the right. Then we get a cubby, 12-volt outlet found in there, and we get the glorious 6-speed manual shifter. I think it looks fine. Mazda's never really done flashy, cooler, interesting shift knobs, and you could always swap that out on your own. So, not rewriting the history books here, it works well enough, and that's it. Then we do have a cubby space and openable cup holders, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test here in the manual Mazda 6, and it fails. Pretty expected there, but I was still holding out a little bit of hope that it would pass. Then we do have the seats. The seats are cloth. They are basic. They are manual. Again, this is the Mazda 6 Sport, so it got almost no options. So no leather, no power seats, no heated seats, which would have been real nice on a day like today, but that's okay. Speaking of seats, however, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. All right, let's get in the back of the Mazda 6. And once we are back here, my knees are not hitting the seat in front of me. This is my driving position, which is fantastic to see. The cloth carries on back here, very, very plain and boring. Seats, we do get a center console, big foam, chunky brick with some cup holders slapped in there. We don't get anything on the center console. This has been one of Mazda's downsides the last 20 years, and it still persists today. Even in the current Mazda 3, they don't have climate control vents for the second row. On a day like today, which is frigid and sucky, I would like some climate vents. We're gonna pause a second. All right. I really wish that they did that. I think that would be huge. Headroom is great. So I fit back here, 5'11", not a small guy, about 260. I fit back here really well, really comfortably. That is one of the big benefits of moving from the Mazda 3 to the Mazda 6. This just gets infinitely better back here. And now that I could row my own gears in a Mazda 6 with all my buddies, I don't want to say this is a sleeper car because I don't want to give the idea that this thing is fast. It's not fast, but this is a slept-on car, if that makes sense. And they're pretty rare, so very cool. Let's hop into the back. We'll take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. I am actually going to pop it from in here because I, for the life of me, either can't find the rear button or there isn't one. I don't think that there is one. You could pop it on the key fob, you could pop it inside. That seems to be it. No trick in the taillights. Okay. Once we are back here, obviously we do have the Mazda floor mats for the next owner, trying to keep them as clean as possible. Oopsies. You can pull this up. You do get a spare tire as well. But that is the rear trunk space. Nothing like crazy better than the Mazda 3. This is where it doesn't necessarily excel. However, you can pull these and you can lower the second row. So that is definitely a very nice feature to have, but that's the trunk of a Mazda 6. Manual or not, that's the trunk of a Mazda 6. There you go. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I've never really fallen in love with this generation of Mazda 6. I think it's handsome enough, but this era of Mazda never really caught my attention that much, especially the Mazda 3s of the same era. Here's one of them. The 3rd gen Mazda 3 is fine, but I much prefer my 4th gen over the 3rd gen. So, kind of same thoughts here with the 2014. I think it's kind of, you know, that sort of thing. However, with all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think not only driving another Mazda 6, which I love near and dear, but now driving a manual Mazda 6? Well, I love it. I am truly happy and truly impressed with the driving feel of the manual Mazda 6. It drives great. Now, I knew that Mazda always has had good manual feelings, even in their non-sporty applications like the CX-5, like the Mazda 3. But getting into this car and driving it, I drive a lot of cars here on the channel, if you've noticed. I actually started thinking I might buy this thing. I mean, I really enjoy it. Now, I don't really need a daily driver, but if I did, man, this would be high on the list. Just because it is simple, it's a normal sedan, it's nothing crazy, but it's just so much more engaging. It feels like such more of a personal experience, getting to row my own gears and experience that on my own. And I do think that there's a big benefit to this vehicle not being a sports car. I love the Miata. I truly, truly do. I own one. I've driven every generation. Love it to death. Living with a Miata is awful. It is terrible. Having such little cargo space, getting down into it all the time, it is sometimes a bummer. Now the driving feel is superior, but living with it is tough. Living with this is a lot easier. This is going to function and operate as a normal car. It's just you're doing some of the work instead of a computer. And I like that. I like having that ability. However, we're starting to see that these sorts of cars are going away if they're not completely gone. I truly believe that there will always be manual transmission cars in one form or another. I think they'll always exist, but they will always be in sporty applications. It's always going to be an option for something a little bit more. I think cars like this is what we're really going to see go away because this is such a slim market. If you're buying a four-door sedan, most people don't want to row their own gears. If you want to row your own gears, you probably want a little sports car. So this was maybe 1%, 2% of Mazda's Mazda 6 sales for 2014. So they didn't really see much of a point of it here in the United States, and they canceled it. They got rid of it. The Mazda 6 didn't have a manual option as the years went on, and then actually the Mazda 6 here in the States has gone away altogether. This sedan market just isn't a very sought after market at the moment. So people will debate all day long when the manual transmissions are finally gonna go away, blah, blah, blah. And that's a hefty debate to have. But I think in that debate, we're losing sight of what we're actually losing, which is cars like this. We're losing middle ground manual cars. We're losing cars that could come both stick and auto. They're normal, they're average and easy to live with. Those are the vehicles that are slipping through our fingers. This is the vehicle that slipped through our fingers, and it's so good. It's very, very good. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to North Naperville Autos for letting me borrow their Mazda 6 for today's video. They're absolutely wonderful. They offer financing. They are Carfax certified, and they do ship to the lower 48 states. So if you don't live in Illinois, and I wouldn't blame you on a cold day like today, you too can still buy from North Naperville Autos. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.